I've never been one to travel. My whole life has fit within a few streets, a few old buses and a simple house, but full of memories. When Davy showed up saying that he had bought me an international trip, my heart seemed to forget my age and beat like a girl's. I spent the whole week choosing clothes, sorting documents, imagining what it would be like to see an airport up close. I repeated to myself like a mantra, my son thought of me, he finally thought of me. That morning, I woke up before the alarm clock. I made coffee, ran my hand over the dishes as if I was saying goodbye to everything. I put on my best blouse, the one I'd kept for years for a special occasion that never came. When David's car honked in front of the house, my hands were shaking so much that I almost knocked over the suitcase. He got out, opened the trunk, but didn't look at me as I expected. A hurried kiss on my forehead, a "Come on, Mum, we can't be late." And that's it. On the way to the airport, I talked too much. I asked about the trip, about the hotel, about the tours, about how expensive it had been. Davy answered with monosyllables, his eyes stuck in traffic, his fingers hitting the steering wheel. "It was a promotion, Mum. Don't care about it, just enjoy it." Carolina did not go. She said she was tired, that she had a lot to solve. I pretended it didn't hurt me, but it did. It always hurt when she found an excuse not to be with me. When the huge airport building appeared in front of us, I felt butterflies in my stomach so strong that I had to take a deep breath. People coming and going, suitcases rolling, voices mixed with flight announcements. The smell of fresh coffee, expensive perfumes, and, in the background, that smell of fuel that I only knew from television. Davy walked fast, as if he was late for something that wasn't me. I struggled to keep up, holding tight to the handle of my only suitcase. We checked in, and he held my documents as if I were a child. I didn't even care, thinking it was careful. When the attendant handed me the boarding pass, I smiled as if it were a diploma. David only looked at the clock. "Mum, sit there for a while. I need to get back in the car. I forgot an important business." I asked what. He avoided my eyes. "A document, Mum. It's fast. Don't leave here." I sat where he told me, near a snack bar. Every minute I adjusted myself in the chair, looked at the corridor where he had disappeared. Suitcases passed, children cried, couples argued, people smiled with their coffees. I hugged my bag close to my chest, afraid of losing the little I had. "He'll be right back," I repeated, as if praying. The boarding pass crumpled little by little in my sweaty hand. The first 20 minutes passed, and I was still smiling. Traffic in the parking lot must be complicated, poor thing, I thought. After 40, I began to feel a strange tightness. I looked at my phone several times, unlocking the screen for no reason. No call, no message. With each group that emerged, my heart raced, thinking that he would return. But it wasn't him. It was never him. An hour passed. I went to the door where we had entered, tried to see the car, but all I saw were strangers. I returned to the same bank, like a child who is afraid of losing his mother. I felt ridiculous, holding that suitcase as if it were a buoy on the high seas. The announcement of my flight echoed over the loudspeaker. My smile, which was once a dream, began to crack. When the name of my city was announced again, this time with that tone of urgency, my chest burned. I took the cell phone and called Davy. He called once, twice, 3. It fell into the mailbox. I tried again. Nothing. My stomach turned. I knew something was wrong, but I still didn't want to name what I was feeling. I refused to call it abandonment. It was then that the cell phone vibrated. A message. My fingers trembled as I swiped the screen to read. The words were short, direct, almost cold. As the letters entered my eyes, I felt every bit of me crumble. There, on that hard airport bench, surrounded by people, I discovered that for the first time in my life, I was really alone. The message said that I should not wait any longer, that it was not for me, that things were already resolved, that I needed to move on with my life without depending on him. I read and reread it, the tears blurring my vision. My hand started shaking so much that the phone almost fell to the ground. I didn't know whether to cry for the lost dream or for the son I no longer recognized. If this story has already touched your heart at the beginning, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any chapter of this journey. I don't remember how long I stood there, staring at that message. The letters seemed to float, as if they didn't want to fixate on the screen. Something inside me refused to accept that those words had come from my son, the same boy who one day fell asleep in my lap, feverish, clinging to my neck. Now he told me to go on with life as if I were an object out of use. I felt my throat close, the salty taste of tears reaching my mouth. I tried to answer. I wrote, "David, what's going on?" Deleted. I wrote again, "Son, where are you?" Nothing seemed enough to get through that coldness. I sent a short, almost childish message. "Where are you?" The blue tick appeared, but no response came. I called again. Mailbox. People passed by, looked askance, perhaps accustomed to other people's dramas. I curled up in my chair, wanting to disappear into that lovingly chosen outfit. With my heart pounding, I went to the airline counter and asked embarrassedly if they could warn my son. The girl looked at me with pity, said that there was no way, that if he wasn't there they couldn't do anything. I asked about the ticket, if I could reschedule, if I still had a way to board. She typed a few things, frowned, and informed me that the ticket had been cancelled by the owner of the purchase. The holder, my son. I felt my legs wobbly. I went back to the chair, almost stumbling. The sound of the announcements on the speaker began to mix with a buzzing sound in my head. The smell of coffee, which had previously made me hungry, now wrapped my stomach. I forced myself to take a deep breath, but it seemed that the air had thickened. My eyes fell on the crumpled boarding pass, still with my name printed on it. It was as if the world was opening up in my face. "You're not going anywhere." It was then that the cell phone vibrated again. Another message. I opened it with a thread of idiotic hope, waiting for an excuse. "I'm coming back, Mom." Instead, I read something even worse. David said that I had nothing else there, that he had taken care of all the bureaucratic part, and that it was better this way. At the end, a phrase that cut me inside, "You'll understand one day." I responded with a why, but no answer came, only silence. I don't know how long I was crying until my face hurt. At some point, a child ran by, spilled some soda near my feet. The mother apologized. I smiled back, out of habit, but I didn't even hear what she said. I was sunk in a kind of pain that doesn't make noise. It only weighs me down. I hugged my bag so tightly that my hands hurt. I felt fragile, old, disposable, as if my own son had put me in a garbage bag and left it on the corner. When I finally managed to get up, my legs trembled. I needed to get out of there, but I didn't even know where to start. I had no ticket, no money left, no one waiting for me. I walked through the terminal like a ghost, dragging the suitcase. That's when the strange feeling arose. I was being watched. I felt it before I saw it, an insistent, heavy look that followed me at every step. I turned my face and saw a man standing not far away, well-dressed, with a firm posture, an expression between surprise and emotion. He stared at me as if he had seen a ghost. For a moment, I thought it was a mistake, that he was looking at someone behind me. I averted my eyes and continued walking, but I heard footsteps approaching. That kind of approach that is not by chance. His heart raced. In times like these, we think of a coup, of danger, of newspaper news. "Magdalene," he called. I stopped right away. It had been many years since anyone called me that, by my full name, with that light accent. Everyone now addressed me as Mother, you, Dona. I turned slowly, not understanding. He came a little closer, his eyes teary, as if he were facing something that had waited a long time. "Dona Madalena, is it really you?" he repeated, almost in a whisper. My first impulse was to retreat. I didn't remember that face. At least not like that, with grey hair on the sides and deep expression lines around the eyes. I tightened the strap of the bag more, as if it could protect me. "You're confusing me," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. He smiled in a strange, sad way. "I would never be confused with you," he said. It's been many years, but I remember. My body reacted before my head. A shiver ran through the back of my neck. There was something in his voice, in the way he pronounced my name, that pulled a distant, still blurry memory. I took a deep breath, trying to maintain control. "Young man, I don't know who you are, but I'm not well. I just want to go home." He then said something that made me freeze. "I know your son left you here, and I also know that they took his name from the house. You're not crazy. They're trying to destroy you." At that moment, the world seemed to turn again. I hadn't told anyone about that, neither to the attendant, nor to the girl at the counter, nor to the mother of the child who spilled soda. The only thing I had were those messages on my cell phone, and the feeling that everything was being ripped away from me. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice cracking. He took a deep breath as if preparing for a jump. "My name is Augusto Vasconcelos," he said, "and I owe you a whole life." His words hung in the air, heavy. I didn't know if I had encountered an enemy, a madman, or something else that I still didn't have the courage to name. But one thing was certain. My life, which had already gone off the rails that morning, was about to be derailed for good. And for the first time, I had the strange feeling that perhaps David's abandonment was just the beginning. When he said he owed me a lifetime, I felt my back get heavy, like I was carrying years I didn't remember living. I pressed my bag even tighter to my chest, trying to disguise the trembling of my hands. I didn't know who he was, but I knew he was vulnerable, exposed, too fragile to trust anyone. My instinct screamed for me to run, but my legs felt like they were glued to the ground. "You're scaring me," I managed to say. Augusto raised his hands in a gesture of calm, as if trying to tame a wounded animal. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice low, firm, and familiar. I couldn't fit that face into any memory, but the tone, something in the rhythm, in the way he accentuated my name. Something moved me. I don't want to do harm. I just want to help her get out of this situation. I left towards the airport elevators, but he came behind. Not too fast, not too aggressive, only following. "Please, Mrs. Madalena, listen to me for 2 minutes, he insisted. The sound of my name in his mouth hurt. It hurt because it seemed too intimate, too strong, as if he had the right to utter it. I turned around, irritated and tired, tears still dry on my face. "Why do you know what happened to me? Who told you? Who are you in my life?" The question came out more like a cry for help than a confrontation. He took a deep breath, as if that was the question he had waited years to hear. "I know because I've been following your situation for some time," he replied, "and because the people who are trying to harm her are not as discreet as they think." My head spun. I wanted to explode, scream, hit him, demand explanations. But the truth is that I was alone. David abandoned me. I didn't have a ticket, enough money, or any plan. Humiliation consumed more than doubt, and he was there, looking at me with a mixture of pain and regret. "If you want, I can take you to the airport lounge, a safe, reserved place to talk. You're too shaken to be here in the middle of everyone." The word safe got me. I took a deep breath, trying to find some spark of courage within me. He seemed sincere, but repentant criminal also seemed to be. Elegant scammer also seemed. I was in uncharted territory. "If I go with you, I promise I won't force myself to anything," I replied. He nodded. We walked together to the lounge. I went one step back, watching his every move. The bearing, the posture, the way the employees greeted him. It didn't seem to be someone improvising an identity. He was known there, respected even. He offered me water, but I could barely hold the glass. My hands trembled too much to pretend normality. "I know what I'm going to say is going to sound absurd," he began carefully, "but someone needs to be on your side now." I stared at him, trying to look stronger than I was. He opened the briefcase and took out a thick envelope with documents organized in transparent plastics. "Your name was removed from the deed to your home 2 weeks ago." The phrase hit my stomach like a punch. He slid the document to me. There was my signature. Fake, so similar that it made me nauseous. "That's a crime," I whispered. "And it's just the beginning," he replied. The feeling that I was falling off an endless cliff came back in full force. David, my son, my boy, had signed on the side. I recognized that crooked handwriting. Why? Why would he do this to me? I asked, my voice almost blacked out. Augusto watched me with a pain that I didn't understand. "Because they are manipulating him, Madalena. And because you're more vulnerable than you think." My chest burned. I wanted to deny everything. I wanted to believe that there was some mistake, but the papers did not lie. He leaned forward, his eyes fixed on mine. "I know who's behind it. And I know why." My breathing became short, difficult. "But before I explain all this to you, I need to tell you who I am." The way he said it made something inside me shudder. It seemed that the entire past, the one I had left buried, was coming to light, and I didn't even know that what he was going to reveal would be able to turn my life upside down. "My name is Augusto Vasconcelos," he repeated, softly. "And you changed my destiny many years ago, even without knowing it." I froze. How could anyone say something so big to me, just that day? He took a deep breath, as if he were about to open an old wound, and when I opened my mouth to speak, I felt that part of my story, the one I had hidden even from myself, was about to be torn from the dark. Hearing Augusto repeat that name, his, not mine, awakened something I couldn't identify. It was like an echo coming from a closed door inside my memory. I sat back in my seat, trying to maintain my posture, even though my heart was beating too loud to ignore. "What do you want with me?" I asked more firmly than I felt. He did not immediately respond. He just opened more documents and put them on the table. "First of all, I want you to see this. It was a copy of my house registration. My name crossed out, David's alone. An authorized transfer with my forged signature. A notarization that I have never done." That's impossible," I muttered. "I was with Davy that day. We were at the doctor, I remember." He shook his head. "Carolina does not depend on your presence to falsify anything." My stomach churned when I heard her name. I picked up the paper and felt the world shrink around me. So many nights I welcomed that woman into my home, served dinner, offered medicine, took care of her headaches. So many times I heard, "Oh, mother-in-law, you are an angel." And there she was, taking the roof off my head. "Am I going to lose my house?" I asked in a thin voice. Augusto leaned towards me seriously. "If we don't do anything, yes." It was the first time I felt a real, concrete, almost physical fear. "But why would they do this to me?" I insisted. "I never hurt anyone." Augusto looked at me with an expression that mixed pity and anger. "Because you have something they want, something valuable, something you don't even know you have." My hands started sweating. "What?" He took a deep breath, as if he were about to cross a line from which he could not return. "Before I tell you, Magdalene, I need you to know what happened in the past." My whole body stiffened. I knew that moment would come. I always knew that one day someone would knock on the door of my story. "There's nothing left in my past," I lied, looking away. "I lived a simple life." He gave a sad smile, as if he were sorry for me. "You lived a silent life, not simple." His words cut deeper than I expected, because they were true. He then opened another envelope. Inside it was an old, yellowed photo. I saw myself there, young, with a smile that I didn't even remember being able to do. By my side, a man, a handsome man, strong, with the same look that was now in front of me. My hands trembled. "My God," that's all I could say. "You and I have known each other for more than 40 years, he continued. "Before your husband, before David." My heart raced. The photo looked alive, as if it wanted to jump off the table and invade my gift by force. "Why did you keep that?" I asked, trying to keep control. He ran his hand through his gray hair, nervous. "Because I never forgot you, and because this photo is proof of something much bigger." I tried to get up, but my legs failed. "You're lying," I murmured. He slowly denied it. "No, you are the only woman I have ever loved in my life." My eyes watered instantly. Those words shouldn't affect me. Not after all. Not after so many losses, so much hardness, so many wrinkles that life has drawn on me. But they did. Not because I wanted to believe it, but because I recognized the sincere pain in his eyes. And that's when he finally said what seemed to be kept for decades. Something that made my heart stop for a second. Something that has brought down all the walls I've built over the years. Magdalene, David is my son. The air disappeared from my lungs. The room seemed to spin. I squeezed the edge of the table so it wouldn't fall off. The ground disappeared beneath my feet. 40 years of silence came to the fore at once. And I realized at that very moment that everything that was happening, all the abandonment, all the humiliation, all the loss, was no coincidence. It was a reckoning with a past that I buried, but that he never stopped breathing. When those words came out of Augusto's mouth, "David is my son," I felt as if lightning had pierced my chest. The air, which was already short, disappeared completely. I rested both hands on the table so I wouldn't collapse right there, in front of that man who suddenly seemed to know my life better than I did. The phrase echoed inside me, repeated, distorted, overwhelming. "No, it can't be," I mumbled, trying to catch my breath. He did not back down. He just watched me in silence, as if he was giving time for the truth to find a place within me. But she couldn't find it. It was too big, too heavy, too cruel to fit in any corner. "Magdalene, I've wanted to tell you this for 40 years, but they didn't let me." The image of David's father came to my mind, with that harsh voice, the always suspicious eyes, the sick jealousy that he tried to disguise. My stomach turned. "You should have left, Augusto," I blurted out, my voice weak, almost a plea. "It should have disappeared. None of this needed to happen." He shook his head, approaching cautiously. "I tried. I swear I tried. But her husband, he threatened me. You said you would destroy my life if I came near you again." My body warmed up, as if the repressed anger of decades had awakened. The memories began to come, fragmented but alive. Augusto's smile as a young man, the long conversations, the hidden afternoons, everything I buried to survive. "I couldn't put you at risk," he continued, his voice breaking. "And when I heard about the pregnancy, I tried to look for you. But he had already taken you out of the place where you lived. You're gone from my life." I felt a hot tear roll down my cheek without me having the strength to stop it. I sat down slowly, like someone who takes a beating. "David, doesn't he know?" Augusto closed his eyes. "No, I never knew, but Carolina found out, and it's using it against you." My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. My son, my only son, had grown up believing a lie. A lie that I accepted to carry because I thought I was protecting him. Now that same lie was being used to destroy me. "I should have told," I whispered. "I should have told the truth when he started to grow up." Augusto held my hand, slowly, as if he was afraid of hurting me. "You did what you thought was right. You did what you needed to do to survive." But I couldn't believe it. The weight of guilt was greater than any justification. I silenced everything, my past, my love, my heart. And why? To now see my son being ripped from me by the hands of a manipulator. "Carolina discovered the story a few months ago," Augusto explained. "She found old documents, old conversations, something that David's father kept away." My eyes burned. "That woman, he called me mother-in-law. I ate my food. I slept in my house." My voice failed. "And was he gathering evidence to destroy me?" Augusto nodded with a silent grudge in his eyes. "And it's doing it very well." Shame consumed me, not only for the past, but for the present. I, so willing to love, so willing to give everything for my son, didn't see what they were doing behind my back. "I need to breathe," I said, standing up. I walked up to the glass wall of the lounge, looking out over the aircraft yard. Planes coming and going, lives coming and going. But it seemed to stand still, crushed by ancient secrets that I tried to bury. When I looked at Augusto again, I felt something new, a mixture of fear and hope. Fear of what was yet to come. Hope that after so many years, someone would finally be on my side. If that's true, and I still don't even know how to believe it, then what happens now? He stared at me with a firmness that I didn't remember seeing in anyone for me. Now, Magdalene, we fight, by his name, for your home, for your life. And for the first time that day, I realized that maybe I had more to lose than I realized, and more strength than I believed. Augusto's revelation did not leave my mind. It spread like smoke, filling every corner of memory that I had forgotten, erased, locked away. When he asked me to show me something else, I felt my legs soften. "I can't take any more surprises," I muttered. He sighed, understanding, but still opened the briefcase next to him. "I know, but you need to remember, to protect yourself now." When she took another photo, I felt the blow come before I even faced her. It was me, young, alive, with eyes that shone in a way that hadn't shone in decades. And there, by my side, he was, August. The memory didn't come all at once. It came in waves. The warm wind that afternoon, the smell of the lake, his hands holding mine as if I were the most precious thing in the world. My heart tightened. I had kept it so deep that I no longer knew it still existed. "I remember that," I confessed in a whisper. "It was before him." Augusto nodded. "It was before everything went wrong. The memory of David's father crept in like a shadow. He had always been possessive, but before the wedding it seemed just jealousy. Only later did I realize that it was control. He found out about us," Augusto said, "and he threatened me. You said I'd end up dead if I got close to you again." I put my hand to my mouth, horrified. He never told me any of this." Augusto smiled sadly. "Of course not. He wanted you all to himself. And when she found out about the pregnancy, it was worse. That period of my life was a blurred stain. I remembered fear, of silence, of nights crying in secret. He said it was his," I whispered. "He forced me to say that. It forced me to repeat it until I believed it." Shame burned me. I never meant to lie. I never wanted to hide it. Augusto approached, but with respect. "Magdalene, I'm not judging you. I understand why you did it." My eyes filled with tears. "I did it because I thought I was protecting my son. I was afraid. Fear of losing him. Afraid of what his father was capable of." The word father pierced me like a knife. Augusto took a deep breath. He was not David's father, and he never acted as such, only as an owner. That phrase ignited a pain that I didn't expect, because it was true. The man who raised David never really loved him, never had affection, never had patience. He was always dry, hard, demanding. And I kept quiet. Out of fear. I suffered so much in that marriage, I admitted, but I thought the silence would protect my son. Augusto held my hands firmly. "Silence destroyed you, and now it's being used against you." Anger began to be born within me. Not an explosive anger, but a deep, old anger that I had never allowed myself to feel. "And Carolina, how did she find out about all this?" He opened another folder. They were copies of old documents, certificates, letters, notes from David's father. "She found a safe that he left, and he decided to use all that to take you out of the game." My blood ran cold. "She wants to take me out of my son's life." Augusto denied it with a firm movement. "She wants to take you out of the inheritance. He wants to declare you incapable of assuming everything." I felt my legs weaken. "Do they want to admit me?" I asked, almost voiceless. "If possible, yes." It was too cruel, too low. It was the kind of thing I only saw in soap operas. But now it was my life, my house, my story, and my son. I was believing them. I shook hands, feeling a timid determination creeping in. "What do I do now?" Augusto smiled, but not of joy, of resolution. "Now you ask for help." He then called someone, a lawyer specializing in abusive interdiction cases. "Magdalene, you are not alone. No more, and you won't let them speak for you anymore." For the first time in a long time, I felt that maybe I could fight. And for the first time in my entire life, I wanted to fight for real. When those words came out of Augusto's mouth, "David is my son," I felt as if lightning had pierced my chest. The air, which was already short, disappeared completely. I rested both hands on the table so I wouldn't collapse right there in front of that man who suddenly seemed to know my life better than I did. The phrase echoed inside me, repeated, distorted, overwhelming. "No, it can't be," I mumbled, trying to catch my breath. He did not back down. He just watched me in silence, as if he was giving time for the truth to find a place within me. But she couldn't find it. It was too big, too heavy, too cruel to fit in any corner. "Magdalene, I've wanted to tell you this for 40 years, but they didn't let me." The image of David's father came to my mind, with that harsh voice, the always suspicious eyes, the sick jealousy that he tried to disguise. My stomach turned. "You should have left, Augusto," I blurted out, my voice weak, almost a plea. "It should have disappeared. None of this needed to happen." He shook his head, approaching cautiously. "I tried. I swear I tried, but her husband, he threatened me. You said you would destroy my life if I came near you again." My body warmed up, as if the repressed anger of decades had awakened. The memories began to come, fragmented, but alive. Augusto's smile as a young man, the long conversations, the hidden afternoons, everything I buried to survive. "I couldn't put you at risk," he continued, his voice breaking. "And when I heard about the pregnancy, I tried to look for you, but he had already taken you out of the place where you lived. You're gone from my life." I felt a hot tear roll down my cheek without me having the strength to stop it. I sat down slowly, like someone who takes a beating. "David, doesn't he know?" Augusto closed his eyes. "No, I never knew. But Carolina found out, and it's using it against you." My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. My son, my only son, had grown up believing a lie that I accepted to carry because I thought I was protecting him. Now that same lie was being used to destroy me. "I should have told," I whispered. "I should have told the truth when he started to grow up." Augusto held my hand, slowly, as if he was afraid of hurting me. "You did what you thought was right. You did what you needed to do to survive." But I couldn't believe it. The weight of guilt was greater than any justification. I silenced everything. My past, my love, my heart. And why? To now see my son being ripped from me by the hands of a manipulator. "Carolina discovered the story a few months ago," Augusto explained. "She found old documents, old conversations, something that David's father kept away." My eyes burned. That woman. He called me mother-in-law. I ate my food. I slept in my house. My voice failed. And was he gathering evidence to destroy me? Augusto nodded with a silent grudge in his eyes. "And it's doing it very well." Shame consumed me, not only for the past, but for the present. I, so willing to love, so willing to give everything for my son, didn't see what they were doing behind my back. "I need to breathe," I said, standing up. I walked up to the glass wall of the lounge, looking out over the aircraft yard. Planes coming and going, lives coming and going, but it seemed to stand still, crushed by ancient secrets that I tried to bury. When I looked at Augusto again, I felt something new, a mixture of fear and hope. Fear of what was yet to come. Hope that after so many years, someone would finally be on my side. If that's true, and I still don't even know how to believe it, then what happens now? He stared at me with a firmness that I didn't remember seeing in anyone for me. "Now, Magdalene, we fight. By his name. For your home. For your life." And for the first time that day, I realized that maybe I had more to lose than I realized, and more strength than I believed. Augusto's revelation did not leave my mind. It spread like smoke, filling every corner of memory that I had forgotten, erased, locked away. When he asked me to show me something else, I felt my legs soften. "I can't take any more surprises," I muttered. He sighed, understanding, but still opened the briefcase next to him. "I know, but you need to remember, to protect yourself now." When she took another photo, I felt the blow come before I even faced her. It was me, young, alive, with eyes that shone in a way that hadn't shone in decades. And there by my side he was, August. The memory didn't come all at once. It came in waves. The warm wind that afternoon, the smell of the lake, his hands holding mine as if I were the most precious thing in the world. My heart tightened. I had kept it so deep that I no longer knew it still existed. I remember that, I confessed in a whisper. It was before him. Augusto nodded. It was before everything went wrong. The memory of David's father crept in like a shadow. He had always been possessive, but before the wedding it seemed just jealousy. Only later did I realize that it was control. He found out about us, Augusto said, and he threatened me. You said I'd end up dead if I got close to you again. I put my hand to my mouth, horrified. He never told me any of this. Augusto smiled sadly. Of course not. He wanted you all to himself. And when she found out about the pregnancy, it was worse. That period of my life was a blurred stain. I remembered fear, of silence, of nights crying in secret. He said it was his, I whispered. He forced me to say that. It forced me to repeat it until I believed it. Shame burned me. I never meant to lie. I never wanted to hide it. Augusto approached, but with respect. Magdalene, I'm not judging you. I understand why you did it. My eyes filled with tears. I did it because I thought I was protecting my son. I was afraid, fear of losing him, afraid of what his father was capable of. The word, father, pierced me like a knife. Augusto took a deep breath. He was not David's father, and he never acted as such, only as an owner. That phrase ignited a pain that I didn't expect, because it was true. The man who raised David never really loved him, never had affection, never had patience. He was always dry, hard, demanding, and I kept quiet, out of fear. I suffered so much in that marriage, I admitted, but I thought the silence would protect my son. Augusto held my hands firmly. Silence destroyed you, and now it's being used against you. Anger began to be born within me, not an explosive anger, but a deep, old anger that I had never allowed myself to feel. And Carolina, how did she find out about all this? He opened another folder. They were copies of old documents, certificates, letters, notes from David's father. She found a safe that he left, and he decided to use all that to take you out of the game. My blood ran cold. She wants to take me out of my son's life. Augusto denied it with a firm movement. She wants to take you out of the inheritance. He wants to declare you incapable of assuming everything. I felt my legs weaken. Do they want to admit me? I asked, almost voiceless. If possible, yes. It was too cruel, too low. It was the kind of thing I only saw in soap operas, but now it was my life, my house, my story, and my son. I was believing them. I shook hands, feeling a timid determination creeping in. What do I do now? Augusto smiled, but not of joy, of resolution. Now you ask for help. He then called someone, a lawyer specializing in abusive interdiction cases. Magdalene, you are not alone, no more, and you won't let them speak for you anymore. For the first time in a long time, I felt that maybe I could fight. And for the first time in my entire life, I wanted to fight for real. The call to the lawyer happened right there, in front of me, while I was still trying to pick up the pieces of what was left of me. Her name was Elisa, a firm, direct, blunt voice. Augusto quickly explained the situation, and in a few minutes, we already had an appointment for that same afternoon. I looked at him, confused, grateful, and scared. Everything was happening too fast, but for the first time, I wasn't just getting beaten. I was starting to react. We left the airport as if we were fleeing from a battlefield. Outside, the wind hit my face, bringing a little lucidity. The world remained the same. Cars passing by, people running, planes taking off. But inside me, everything had changed. I got into Augusto's car with a knot in my stomach. Do you trust me at least a little? He asked as he put on his seatbelt. I thought for a second. I trust you more than anyone else today, I replied bitterly. The hotel he took me to wasn't too luxurious, but it was good. Much better than anywhere I had ever stayed. The smell of clean sheets, the soft carpet, the silence of the hallway. Everything seemed to say that I was far from the confusion. But the confusion lived inside me. Augusto said goodbye at the door of the room, assuring me that he would come back to pick me up at the time of the meeting with Elisa. "Get some rest," he said. "You're going to need energy." I sat on the bed and let my body finally feel the fatigue. I tried to close my eyes, but the images came in sequence. Davy abandoning me at the airport, the cruel message on the cell phone, the falsified deed, the old photo, the revelation that he was Augusto's son. It was too much information for a lifetime, let alone a single day. I wondered if a heart my age could handle all this. Maybe I didn't have a choice. I took out my cell phone and opened the conversation with Davy. The messages I had sent were still there, alone, unanswered. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitant. I wanted to write, "Did you know that I could lose the house? Did you know they were taking me away from everything?" But I deleted each attempt. I realized that I was in no condition to beg for anything, neither explanation nor consolation. For the first time, something crossed my mind that hurt me to admit. Maybe I needed to learn to live without my son. When Augusto came back to pick me up, I had already taken a shower, changed clothes, and in a way put on another skin. She was no longer the woman who left home in the morning dreaming of a trip. It was someone who had been thrown into the fire and was trying not to turn to ashes. We got into the car in silence. On the way, he explained some things about the lawyer. "She's tough," he said, "but it's fair. If you tell the truth, it will defend you with everything." Elisa's office was in a modern building, full of glass and metal. I felt small when I walked in, with my bag worn out and my shoes worn out. But as soon as she came to me, I saw in her eyes something I recognized: firmness. "Are you Madalena?" he asked, shaking my hand tightly. I nodded. We sat at the table, me, her, and Augusto. "I want to hear everything from the beginning," she said, opening a notepad. "No fear, no shame. No one came here to judge you." I started by telling him about the message at the airport, then the discovery of the deed. Gradually, I pulled thread by thread from the past: my unhappy marriage, the control of David's father, the disappearance of Augusto, the fear, the silence. It wasn't easy. It seemed like every sentence ripped a piece out of my throat. Elisa wrote everything down, sometimes interrupting with direct questions. "Has he ever threatened you with interdiction in life? Has Carolina ever made you sign any document without reading it?" When I finished, I was exhausted. Elisa took a deep breath and leaned back in her chair. "It's worse than I imagined," he said, "but it's also more solid." I frowned, not understanding. "Solid?" She nodded. "Yes, they made mistakes, falsifying signatures, trying to remove you from documents without justification, removing you from the house. This all leaves a trace. And a trail is proof." For the first time, the word proof sounded like something that could work for me, not against me. "But one thing you need to understand, Mrs. Madalena," she continued, staring me in the eyes. "They will probably try to officially interdict you. They will say that you are confused, fragile, unable to take care of yourself." A chill ran down my spine. "They want to erase you legally, to erase you from their lives." My first impulse was to cry, to break down again. But something inside me froze. Instead, I straightened my spine. "So, doctor, teach me how to fight, because I'm not going to let it. The story is getting intense. If you are not yet subscribed, take advantage of this moment and subscribe to the channel, so you follow every twist and turn of this plot." The next day, I woke up with a knot in my chest and a kind of strange energy coursing through my veins. It wasn't courage yet, but it was more than fear. It was as if I had woken up from a coma that was too long. Augusto arrived early at the hotel, bringing coffee and a bag of bread. "I imagine that yesterday was not easy," he said, placing the package on the table. I smiled from the side, tired. "Easy? I don't think even that word exists for me anymore." He laughed softly, but his eyes were still serious. While we were having coffee, Elisa called. I answered with my heart racing. Her voice was direct. "Dona Madalena, today don't go out alone. If possible, don't go to your house yet." I felt my blood run cold. "Why?" She sighed on the other side. I received information that Carolina may be trying to enter her property to collect documents, belongings, anything that can be used against you or that she wants to appropriate. My first impulse was to run there. But my things are there, I protested. My photos, my letters, my memories. Elisa was firm. I know, but you are not going alone. I'm going to try an emergency measure. In the meantime, someone needs to witness any suspicious action. At that moment, as if the universe wanted to prove that it still had a bit of cruel humor, my cell phone beeped. It was a message from the neighbor, Dona Ruth. Magdalene, daughter, there are people hanging around his house. I need to talk to you. I called her right away. Dona Ruth's voice was distressed. There's a girl here, that daughter-in-law of yours, and a man with the face of a lawyer. They are trying to enter your house. They said you're hospitalized and asked me to open the gate. I felt my heart stop for a second. You didn't open it, did you? I asked, almost screaming. She looked offended. Of course not. I said I would only open it if I talked to you first. Then they went to the gate and are calling someone, with the speakerphone on. Augusto and Elisa listened to everything with me. Dona Ruth, stay inside your house, lock everything, and if they start forcing the gate, call the police, Elisa advised. I'm going to record that. That's important. When we hung up, I felt my legs shake again. It was as if I watched from afar someone dismantling my life, room by room. I wasn't inside my house, but I felt like they were going through my drawers from the inside. They won't stop, Madalena, Augusto said seriously. The more resistance you show, the more aggressive they get. I took a deep breath, trying to control my tears. I just wanted to live in peace. I never wanted anything from anyone. He looked at me tenderly. You're not asking for anything other than what's rightfully yours. Your home, your dignity, the truth about your son. Those words moved deeply. I was no longer just someone trying to survive. I was beginning to want justice. Shortly after, Dona Ruth sent an audio. Her voice came breathless, but firm. They left. They said that they would come back with a signed paper and that you would have to accept reality. I showed the audio to Elisa. She listened carefully and then began to write things down. Great. We have one more piece in the puzzle. Eyewitness, intimidation, use of alleged hospitalization as justification. This all counts, Mrs. Madalena. Every step they take is a stepping stone toward their own downfall. Still, the idea that someone could tamper with my physical memories, photos, letters, notes, small objects, cut me inside. I have things there that prove my story, I explained. Old letters, photos, papers. If they catch that, I lose everything. Augusto looked at me with that same determined air. So we won't let it. We'll go there, but not without protection. Elisa agreed. We will organize this with caution. No momentum. A few hours later, we were on our way to my neighborhood, accompanied by another lawyer from Elisa's office, who would be responsible for any immediate legal approach. The car passed through the street as usual, but I saw it differently. The gate of the house, which had already seen me arrive carrying market bags, garbage bags, small dreams, and enormous fatigue. Now it looked like a minefield. I never imagined that such an ordinary place could become a war scene. Before getting out of the car, Augusto held my hand. Remember what Elisa said. You're not crazy, you're not fragile, you're not incapable. She is the owner of her story, and they're not going to rip that out of you. I took a deep breath, swallowed my fear, and opened the door. With each step towards the gate, I felt like I was entering territory that was once mine, and that now I would need to win back, not only with a key, but with courage. And it was there on the sidewalk of my own house that I understood that this fight was no longer just to keep a roof over my head. It was to regain who I was, and who I had stopped being for a long time. I knew that sooner or later I would have to look David in the eye. Running away from him wasn't going to change what had already happened, nor what they were trying to do to me. After the confusion at home, Elisa thought it best to keep her distance for a few days, gain time, gather evidence. But my chest burned. It wasn't just legal fear. It was a mother's pain. I needed to hear from his mouth if all that had really been a choice or manipulation. It was Augusto who suggested coffee, a neutral, public place where no one could raise their voice without attracting attention. I sent a simple message to David. We need to talk, just the two of us. I'll meet you at the cafe in the square at 4 p.m. I waited forever for an answer. When the blue tick appeared, my heart raced. I will, he wrote, just one word. There was no affection, there was no explicit hurt, just an emptiness that hurt more than any cursing. At the scheduled time, I arrived earlier, as I've always done in life for everything. I chose a table near the window, from where I could see who was coming in and out. My hands wouldn't stop sweating. The smell of freshly brewed coffee brought back good memories. Mornings when David left for school and I passed coffee in the bottle, along with bread with margarine wrapped in a napkin. He always forgot half, and I ate afterwards, laughing alone. Now, that smell seemed to mock me. When he came in, I didn't need anyone to warn me. Mother recognizes son even from the back, even in silence, even in the middle of a crowd. He seemed harder, more tense, as if carrying the weight of a secret he didn't know how to manage. He sat down without kissing me, without holding my hand. "What do you want, Mom?" he asked directly. The word mother sounded more like an automatic habit than a caress. I swallowed hard. "I want to understand," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want to understand why you left me at that airport. Why did you cancel my ticket? Why did you remove my name from the house?" He looked away, fiddling with his napkin impatiently. "That was the best for everyone, Mom. You don't understand things. Life has changed." That hit me like a slap. "Better for everyone," I repeated. "For everyone. Except for me, right?" He took a deep breath, annoyed. "Carolina just wants to protect what is ours. She said that you are confused, signing things without reading, listening to people you shouldn't." The expression, "people who shouldn't," fell like lead. I knew who he was referring to. "Are you talking about Augusto?" I asked, staring at him. David looked up, shooting me. "So it's true. You're hanging out with this guy, the man who almost ended his life and our family." My fingers trembled on the table. "Who told you that? Your father?" I asked, feeling my voice break. David nodded. "He told me everything before he died. He said that this guy destroyed your marriage, tried to take you away pregnant, tried to destroy our house. It was like listening to an inverted script where the villain got a hero's outfit." "And did you believe everything?" I asked. "Without asking me anything?" He gave a dry laugh. "Since when do you tell me anything? His life has always been a mystery, full of secrecy, of silence. I grew up not knowing half of the things." It hurt, because it was partly true. My silence hurt him too, but not in the way he imagined. "I kept quiet to protect you, Davy," I said. "You had no idea what your father was capable of." He banged on the table, annoyed. "It doesn't start. He worked his whole life for us." I took a deep breath. I could choose between continuing to hide or start digging it all up. And for the first time, I decided to cut a hole in the earth. "Your father deceived you, David. He deceived you all your life. Augusto did not end my marriage. Your father stole me from Augusto." His expression changed. First, shock, then anger. "So now you're going to say that this guy is a saint," he joked. "Is that it?" I looked straight into his eyes, feeling my heart pound in my throat. "I'm saying he's your father." The silence that followed those words seemed to swallow the whole coffee. David stared at me as if I had completely lost my sanity. "You have gone crazy for good," he murmured. I knew this was going to happen. Carolina was right. You need help. And at that moment I realized that the truth, told without evidence, had the power to drown me even more. After that meeting, I returned to the hotel as if I had crossed a minefield barefoot. Augusto and Elisa were waiting for me in the meeting room of the office. When I entered, the two interrupted the conversation and looked at me carefully. "And then?" asked Augusto anxiously. I sat slowly, exhausted. "He doesn't believe in anything. You think I've gone crazy, that you poisoned my head." Saying it out loud was like confirming a sentence. Elisa crossed her arms, thoughtful. "It was expected," he said. "Davi has been receiving a unique version of the story for years, and now he is being manipulated by someone who knows how to use guilt and fear as a tool. I sighed, resting my face on my hands. I told the truth, but without proof. The truth seems to be a lie. The lawyer nodded, understanding. That's why we can't depend only on your word. We need something that is indisputable. It was then that she opened a different briefcase, thinner, but which seemed to weigh tons. I spent the night reviewing the material we found and doing some extra searches. She took out a yellowed letter, protected by plastic. This here was in a forgotten file of her husband's former lawyer, an office that closed years ago. Luckily, the documents were scanned. My heart raced without me knowing why. She placed the letter before me. At the top, the name of David's father. I recognized the handwriting immediately, that controlled, almost arrogant handwriting. "Read it out loud if you can," Elisa asked. My hands trembled, but I obeyed. The words hurt with every line. He admitted to having falsified documents, spoke of the threat that Augusto represented, said that he took for himself David's paternity, even though he knew that the boy was not biologically his. In the end, he confessed his fear that the truth would come out one day. By the time I finished reading, my hands were damp with sweat. I felt a mixture of nausea and relief. Nausea for confirming what I already knew. Relief to finally have proof. "This letter, it's a bomb," Augusto murmured. "Who did he write this for?" Elisa replied, "To the lawyer. It was a kind of instruction in case of a lawsuit, in case you, Madalena, tried something. He wanted to have control even over his own confession." She then handed over another document, an old certificate with notes and a preliminary genetic compatibility exam, done without my knowledge. Her husband started a process to try to prove that Davy was not his son, but he gave up halfway through, Elisa explained, probably for fear of the scandal. But the records remained. My chest hurt. That is, even in this he had thought only of himself. Never in me, never in David. "With this letter and these documents," Elisa continued, "we have two important things: proof of his awareness of David's true paternity and proof that he manipulated documents to keep you in check." Augusto clenched his fists, holding back his anger. "And how do we use that?" The lawyer smiled almost sharply. "At the right time. First, let's record everything officially so that nothing mysteriously disappears." She explained that she would file a formal request to prevent any attempt at interdiction until all those facts were analyzed. "If they try to tell you that you're confused or delusional, we'll have a letter written in his own hand, confirming the story you told." I looked at the paper as if it were a weapon, and it was. Only this time it was in my hand. "I never thought that the person who hurt me the most would also be responsible for defending me, even if I was dead," I commented bitterly. But Elisa didn't stop there. He also took out a small white envelope. "There's one more thing." From inside, she pulled out an old scanned photo, accompanied by a statement from a former employee of the registry office of the city where I lived. "He remembers you, Magdalene. She remembers her relationship with Augusto. Remember the confusion. And he is willing to testify." I felt my eyes water. I was no longer alone with my memories. There were other people who remembered who I had been. "In court, facts speak louder than emotional narratives," Elisa explained. "And we have facts, letters, exams, witnesses, records of the movement of documents from his house, attempts at forgery." She began to enumerate everything, as if putting together a puzzle. Each piece was a piece of my old pain, transformed into evidence. It was strange to think that what almost killed me now was just what could save me. I left that meeting different from how I entered. Still sore, still fragile in many points, still the mother of a son who thought I was crazy. But for the first time, I felt that the scales were not entirely against me. There was a real chance to turn the tide. And the proof that changed everything was there, inside a folder, protected by plastic, and by people who were now willing to fight by my side. That night, lying in the hotel bed, I looked up at the dark ceiling and made a silent promise. I couldn't guarantee that David would love me again, nor that he would understand everything. But I could assure you that this time, I would not remain silent. The truth would come out of the drawer, the letter, the safe, the registry office, wherever it was hidden. And when I appeared in front of everyone, no one else could call me crazy without having to swallow every word. The following days were a strange mixture of silence and intense movement. On the outside, I seemed to be standing still, confined to the hotel room, drinking coffee, watching time pass by the window. Inside, Denise, Elisa's assistant, called me almost every day talking about new documents, protocols, and records. I heard names of notary offices, deadlines, case numbers. It was as if my life had become a cold code inside a computer. But interestingly, this gave me a sense of protection. It was on one of these mornings that I received an audio from Donna Ruth, the neighbor. Her voice came in a conspiratorial tone. "Magdalene, you won't believe it. I saw Carolina on the street, yelling at a man in a suit. I was nervous, talking about papers that couldn't appear and old traitorous lawyer." My heart raced. I sent the audio to Elisa immediately. In response, she asked for Donna Ruth's contact. "A spontaneous witness like her is pure gold," he commented. That afternoon, I was called into the office again. When I arrived, I found Elisa with a discreet smile, almost victorious. "We have news," he said. I sat down, already preparing my chest for more impacts. She explained that an accountant who worked with Carolina and a suspicious lawyer had sought the office, afraid of being involved in something bigger. He brought copies of emails, messages, and drafts of false documents, he said, including a psychiatric report that was never signed by any doctor. I felt a chill down my spine. They were trying to create evidence that Have I gone crazy? Elisa nodded seriously. Carolina was preparing a perfect scenario. Financial documents, false reports, pressure on neighbors to confirm that you were confused. I took a deep breath, indignant. "I'm confused now, but because of them," I murmured. Augusto ran his hand over his face, tense. "She's more dangerous than I imagined." The accountant, a tired-looking, middle-aged man, was called into the room. He entered with his head down, without the courage to look me in the eyes at first. I didn't know I was going to go so far," he tried to justify himself. "I thought it was just a family thing." Elisa was firm, but fair. "You participated, even partially, but if you collaborate now, you can avoid something worse." He then began to tell, in detail, how Carolina planned to take me out of the scene in a clean way. She had asked him to simulate movements in my account, as if I was spending too much on meaningless things. He had also instructed him to prepare a dossier with supposed signs of weakness, forgetfulness, bad checks, confusion with dates. She wanted to create an artificial history of disability. As he spoke, I felt anger and disbelief. This woman lived with me for years, I thought. He ate my food, sat in my living room, and treated me as a problem to be eliminated. When he finished the account, Elisa signed some papers and asked him to sign his official statement as well. "Do you understand that this can be used in court?" he asked. He nodded, resigned. "I just don't want to go to jail," he murmured. "I have family." I watched him for a moment. "Do you know what the difference is between you and Carolina?" I asked, on an impulse. He looked at me, scared. "You still feel afraid. She doesn't feel anything." I left that meeting with a bittersweet feeling. On the one hand, it was terrifying to discover Carolina's level of calculation and coldness. On the other hand, every wrong step she took, every accomplice who gave up, strengthened the side here. What once seemed like a war already lost began to take shape as a just battle with real chances of victory. Still, the part of me that was a mother was still tight. Because in the middle of it all, there was David, confused, manipulated, defending those who were trying to destroy his own mother. At night at the hotel, I lay in bed without turning on the television. The silence was heavy, but I needed it. I closed my eyes and remembered the day I met Carolina. She was nice, funny, and shy. She said that she never had a real family, that she felt welcomed with me. I believed it. I believed so much that I opened my wardrobe, my kitchen, my pains, my secrets, and she, in return, opened a plan to erase me. It was then that a certainty formed within me, firm as stone. I would not be erased. The next day in the morning, Elisa called me in a more excited voice than usual. "We were able to set up the initial hearing faster than we expected," he announced. "In a few weeks, we will sit in front of a judge. They'll probably arrive confident, thinking they'll bring you down. But that's when Carolina's plan begins, once and for all, to fall apart." Hearing this, something in me rose. I was no longer just a target. I was at last entering the battlefield with my head held high. On the day of the hearing, I woke up before the alarm clock with my whole body restless. It wasn't just fear. It was a mixture of anxiety, adrenaline, and a strange sense of purpose. I looked at my face in the hotel mirror. Wrinkles, marks, signs of all the tears I've ever shed. But I also saw something that I hadn't recognized for a long time, firmness in my gaze. I chose a simple but neat outfit, combed my hair calmly, and put on a discreet lipstick. It was not vanity, it was armor. Augusto arrived early, as always. When he saw me, he smiled proudly. "You look beautiful," she said. I laughed, embarrassed. "Linda, I don't know, but I'm ready." In the car, on the way to the courthouse, no one said much. Elisa mentally reviewed the points. The other lawyer checked documents, and I prayed silently. He did not ask for miracles. He did not ask for the past to be erased, nor for David to suddenly understand everything. He asked only one thing, that the truth not be suppressed. Upon arriving, the sight of David in the lobby almost made my legs fail. He was next to Carolina, who wore an outfit too sober for her standard. She wanted to appear respectable, offended, a victim perhaps. He held a briefcase in his hands, his eyes hard but restless. For a second our eyes crossed. I tried to smile, a small, hesitant smile. He turned his face away, as if it burned him. I felt a stab in my chest, but I remained standing. When we were called to the courtroom, the heart seemed to beat in our throats. I sat next to Elisa, facing the judge. On the other side, Carolina, Davy, and her lawyer, a middle-aged man with a calculating look and a smile that I wouldn't even trust to ask the time. The judge began by explaining the reason for the hearing, to assess the need or not for a provisional interdiction in the face of allegations about my mental and financial capacity. Carolina's lawyer was the first to speak. With a trained voice, he began to paint a picture of me that I didn't recognize. "A confused, disoriented, easily influenced lady, spending money irresponsibly, getting involved with dangerous strangers." He quoted Augusto, of course, with some disdain. He showed a spreadsheet with alleged incoherent expenses from my account, not to mention that many of those entries had been manipulated. I listened to everything as if they were talking about an invented character. When it was Carolina's turn, she made a point of looking emotional. He squinted his eyes to manufacture tears, modulated his voice in a tone of victim. "I have always loved Mrs. Madalena as if she were my mother," he began, "but lately she's been acting very strangely, signing papers without reading, forgetting appointments, distrusting everyone. I'm afraid she will put herself in danger. We just want to protect her." Davy on the side seemed torn between the script and his own guilt. Then the judge gave Elisa the floor. She stood up with a calm but sharp posture. "Your Excellency, with all due respect, what is being presented here is a carefully rehearsed theater," he began. "And we have evidence that this is not about care, but about asset control and the erasure of rights." She then presented, one by one, the pieces we had gathered. Messages from Carolina to the neighbor insinuating hospitalization, the attempted invasion of the house, the accountant's testimony, the letter from her former husband. When the letter was projected, the room became silent. I listened, along with everyone, to the words that I myself had read days before. I assumed that I took for myself the paternity of David, knowing that he is not my biological son. David's face turned pale. Carolina squeezed his arm, trying to control the reaction. Her lawyer tried to interrupt, alleging document with no relevance to the interdiction, but the judge asked for silence. "This document shows more than you imagine," he said seriously. Elisa went on, connecting the letter to the attempts to remove me from the house deed and the forgeries. If Mrs. Madalena was really incapable, why so many efforts to forge her signature? He asked. Why not follow the right legal paths? Because the goal here is not to protect her, but to appropriate everything she has while demoralizing her. I watched Carolina's face change. The polite victim veneer began to crack. At one point, the judge turned directly to me. Dona Madalena, do you feel capable of taking care of your own life, to make financial, physical, emotional decisions? I swallowed, but lifted my chin. Your Excellency, I may have been silent for many years, out of fear, out of misunderstood love, out of old shame, but I was never confused. I know very well who I am, what I've lived through and what they're trying to do to me now. The words came out of my mouth more firmly than I expected. The judge looked at me carefully for a few seconds, as if studying me. Then he asked some simple questions about dates, locations, approximate values. I answered them all, without hesitation. Not because my memory was perfect, but because my conscience was clear. I knew where my life had hurt. She knew where she had been torn, and above all, he knew who was trying to tear up the little that was left. At the end, the judge sighed and declared that, in view of the evidence presented and my posture, he saw no reason to decree any provisional interdiction. On the contrary, it would determine a deeper investigation into the patrimonial movements made in my name without authorization. The feeling at that moment was as if someone had taken a huge weight off my back. It was not total victory. There was still a lot of battle ahead, but that day I proved that I wasn't crazy. And in front of everyone, I took the first step to regain my voice. When the judge closed the session, the silence in the room seemed louder than any scream. Carolina was rigid, as if someone had pulled the ground under her feet. David looked like a lost boy, staring into emptiness as he processed what he had just heard. I sat for a few moments, breathing slowly, allowing my mind to reach the body. I had won a part, but the war was still there, overflowing in their eyes. As I left the room, David came after me. "Mom, what's that?" he asked, his voice trembling, trying to keep his composure. I looked at him, feeling a mixture of pain, love, and exhaustion. That, my son, it is the truth that I carried alone for a lifetime. He ran his hands through his hair, distraught. My father, did he lie to me? The question hurt, because the answer was bigger than a simple yes. It was a lifetime of shadows. He lied about a lot, I replied calmly. And I kept quiet out of fear. David pulled back a little, his breathing quickening. And this man, this Augusto, is he really? I didn't let him finish. Yes, he is your biological father. The sentence came out firm, without trembling. It was no longer a secret, it was a fact. David staggered a step back as if he needed air. I wanted to hold him, but I held my own hands. It was not time to invade his space. It was then that the scene I never imagined watching happened. Carolina grabbed Davy's arm, desperate. "Don't believe her," she whispered, almost hysterical. "She's confused, manipulated. This is all set up." The judge was still close enough to hear, as were some court officials. Her lawyer tried to sidestep the scandal, but Carolina seemed to have lost control of her own body. The mask, that perfect mask she wore, began to fall there in front of everyone. Elisa approached, crossing her arms. "Carolina, I recommend that you choose your next words well," she warned, calm but sharp. "You have just been caught in attempted fraud, coercion, and trespassing. You are one step away from turning this into an intentional crime." Carolina turned to her with hatred. "You don't know who you're messing with." Elisa's short laugh was almost elegant. "Not at all, but I know who you wanted to mess with, and he chose the wrong person." Davy tried to intervene, but Carolina pulled him back. "She's deceiving you, David. This old lady is using you, always used. Don't you see? She wants to take everything from us." That was the last straw. The whole room fell silent. The word old came out loaded with poison, with contempt, with a cruelty that she could no longer hide. David turned his face to her slowly. For the first time, his expression was one of no doubt, but of shock. "Carolina, why are you talking to my mother like that?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. She tried to back off, but he wouldn't let go of her arm. "You've always complained about her. He always insinuated that she got in the way of our lives, that she was going crazy." His gaze transformed, piecing together the loose pieces of the last few months. You knew about this letter, didn't you?" She tried to deny it, but the expression already betrayed her. Augusto took a step forward, but I motioned for him to wait. I needed to see that happen. I needed to see the veil fall. Davy stared at Carolina as if he finally saw the woman he lived with. "You messed with her house. You tried to falsify documents. What did you do all this for? To get away from her?" Carolina cried, but not sincerely. Afraid. A fear that came too late. The judge, still present, approached and warned that provisional measures would be taken. Carolina could be called to provide formal clarifications in the coming days. She tried to protest, but the lawyer already knew that the battle was lost. David, defeated, finally let go of her arm, and I saw, for the first time, a piece of the truth go through his heart. It wasn't enough to fix everything. Not yet. But it was a crack, and cracks let light in. As I left the forum, I felt my knees soften. Augusto approached carefully. "Magdalene, breathe." I breathed. Bottom. For the first time in many years, I felt that the weight of the past was no longer pushing my back to the ground. It was crumbling, like dust carried by the wind. But I knew that before the reconstruction, the pain of naked reality would still come. The pain of facing a child broken by the truth. The days after the hearing were eerily quiet. There were no more subpoenas, attacks, aggressive messages. Carolina disappeared. So did David. Augusto called me every day, worried, but left room for me to breathe. The truth had exploded in the courtroom. But now I needed to deal with it inside my own home, or rather, inside my own soul. And that, no one could do for me. I returned home accompanied by Elisa and a judicial expert, just to officially check the state of the property. The gate was intact, but the garden looked unkempt, as if reflecting the inner mess of my life. Each room seemed to carry a memory, good and bad. And I walked through them cautiously, as if stepping on invisible shards. That place was no longer just a house. It was proof. It was battle. It was survival. While the lawyers took pictures and notes, I went to the room where I kept my old things. The familiar smell of stored clothes, stacked boxes, small souvenirs, everything was there, in the same place. I knelt in front of the drawer where I kept old letters. I touched the envelope with my fingertips, and I felt a shiver. It was no longer fear, it was liberation. For the first time I could keep my story without having to hide it. Augusto arrived later that same day with 2 large boxes. "Why is that?" I asked. He smiled. "For you to keep what makes sense and throw away what should never have remained." I don't think anyone had ever said that to me. Not like that. Not with that respect. We spent the whole afternoon reorganizing my house, taking out remnants of a sick past, leaving room for something new to grow. Not a novel, not yet, but respect, care, presence. A few hours later, I heard the gate slam. It was David. He entered slowly, as if he was stepping on forbidden ground. My heart raced, but I stood firm. He stood before me, not knowing where to put his hands. Can I come in?" he asked. The question hurt, because that was his childhood home. I nodded. He approached. That boy I raised looked older than me at that moment. "Mom, I don't know where to start." I breathed slowly. "So start with what is true." He ran his hand over his face, exhausted. I didn't know anything. Carolina, she took care of things, said it was better this way. I thought she was protecting me." I felt my chest tighten. "David, you're an adult. He is no longer a child, and he chose to believe her without asking me anything." He nodded, his eyes teary. "I know, and I regret it." He got closer. "I didn't know that man, that Augusto." The voice failed. "I don't know what to do with it. I could have hugged him at that moment. I could have cried and said everything was fine, but it wasn't. Son, I've spent my life protecting you from hard truths. Now you're going to have to learn to deal with them without running away." He nodded in agreement, but he looked shattered. "Will you forgive me?" he asked, his voice small as if he were 5 years old again. I took a deep breath. The question was burning. It was not simple, it was not light, and it wasn't automatic. "I love you, David. That will never change. But pardon me. Forgiveness needs time. It needs it needs change," he cried. A boy's cry, not a man's. And I let him cry, without consoling too much, without suffocating, without cancelling me. Before leaving, he looked around. Can I come and help with what is missing?" I thought for a second, and finally I replied, "You can, but not through fault, out of responsibility." He nodded, understanding, and he left, walking slower than he entered. I closed the gate behind him and felt a deep silence fill the air. It was not empty. It was a new beginning. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a hot cup of tea and the unprecedented certainty of something. I had not returned to who I was, first of all. I had become another. And this new woman, the one who now took a deep breath, spoke firmly, faced truths, deserved a better future than the one she had lived. It was time to rebuild. In the months that followed, the house went from being a war scene to a home again, but a different home. I changed curtains, donated furniture, took old paintings loaded with memories that no longer fit me. On the wall of the living room, where my wedding photo used to be, I hung a shelf with my colorful threads and fabrics. I no longer wanted to honor a past that held me back. I wanted to honor what could still be born from me. It was Elisa who suggested it one afternoon, while we were having coffee at the kitchen table. "You sew so well, Mrs. Madalena. Have you ever thought about turning this into a business?" I laughed, finding it funny. "Business, me?" But the idea kept circling my head. I started small. I repaired pant hems for neighbors, adjusted dresses, embroidered names on towels. Soon orders came for bags, toiletry bags, small suitcases. My house, which was previously silent, was once again filled with the pleasant noise of the sewing machine. Augusto always appeared with some exaggerated compliment. "You still haven't realized the talent you have," he said, leaving boxes of fabric on the table. At first, I felt embarrassed. All my life, I have been suspicious of gifts that are too big, but I learned that not all help comes with a trap. Some gestures are simply born from a heart that has also been beaten by life, and with care, I began to accept being cared for, without feeling small for it. Davy began to come little by little. At first, he would stand on the sidewalk, bringing fruit or bread, asking if I needed anything. I let them in. We talked about simple things, his work, the weather, news from the city. We avoided painful subjects, like someone walking around a room still under construction. Gradually, he began to insist on helping me with the studio's social networks. "You do it, I spread the word," he suggested. I accepted, not as an attempt to buy forgiveness, but as a way to rebuild trust. The relationship between him and Augusto, however, was another chapter. Often the two ended up at the same table because of me. The atmosphere was heavy at first, as if the air became denser. But over time, small gestures emerged. A coffee that one served to the other, a question about work, a comment about football. There were no hugs, no emotional phrases. There was something more timid, but real. Respect being built slowly. One day, while I was sewing a fabric suitcase, the kind that became my trademark in the neighborhood, I realized that there was something symbolic there. All my life I dreamed of a trip that never happened. Now I didn't expect anyone to take me anymore. I packed bags myself, for myself and for other people. It was as if every point I gave was a reminder, you're not stuck anywhere. It can come and go inside you whenever you need it. It was on one of these afternoons that Augusto showed up with a different envelope. "Don't be scared," he said, sitting in front of me. Inside there was a plane ticket. It wasn't international. It wasn't an absurd luxury. It was a short flight to a coastal city that I always wanted to visit and never could. "This time, you choose the destination," he said. I held the note carefully, as if it were fragile. I didn't answer at the time. My heart still remembered the airport. It still hurt. In the evening, I sat in the kitchen with the note on the table, next to a cup of tea. I kept looking at him as if looking at a border. I knew I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. I didn't have to travel for real as a person. But I also understood that I couldn't let the trauma decide the rest of my steps. David arrived unannounced and saw the passage. "Are you going?" he asked. I shrugged. "I don't know yet." He looked at me with a sincerity I hadn't seen in years. "If you go, I'll take it to the airport." His sentence did not erase the day he left me there. It did not erase the harsh message, the abandonment, the fear, but it made a crack in the concrete of the hurt. I looked at him long and deep. "I don't know if I can trust you for that yet," I replied, without cruelty, just with truth. He nodded, his eyes teary. "I understand, but one day, I hope you can." And for the first time, I felt that he wasn't asking for forgiveness in a hurry. He was willing to wait as long as it took. In the end, I decided that I would not go on that trip. Not yet. I kept the ticket, let it win, and then told Augusto, looking him in the eyes, "I don't need to go far now. My new beginning began right here, in this house, in this sewing machine, in this life that I'm remaking." He smiled, understanding. "So whenever you want, we buy another one. The important thing is for you to know that now. You choose." And it was true. That night, before going to sleep, I passed by the living room and stared at my colorful fabrics, my bags packed, my desk full of orders. Life had not become a fairy tale. I didn't have a perfect child, a scar-free love, or a clean story. There was something better, a whole truth, albeit painful, and the certainty that I was no longer the woman abandoned at the airport, with the crumpled ticket in my hand. I was Magdalene, older, more tired, but in short, made of steel. And for the first time, I felt enough. And now I want to know from you, what did you feel following Dona Madalena's journey? Which part moved your heart the most? The abandonment, the revelation, the judgment, or the rebuilding? Comment below. Your opinion is very important and helps this channel to grow even more.